The woman racially profiled at the ATM didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't run. And when the truth finally came out, it made everyone stop in their tracks. What would you have done if it were you? Let us know in the comments section below. Tanya Sinclair tapped her card against the worn edge of the ATM and sighed softly, her breath catching not from fear or fatigue, but routine. Her braided hair was neatly tied back, her purse hung snug under her elbow, and in her mind she was already halfway through the transaction. Grab cash, swing by the grocery store, pick up her niece from the after-school program. It was a rhythm. It was Tuesday. It was her life. Behind her, the low rumble of an idling car was nothing new. The bank's ATM sat just off the main road, the kind of place where engines hummed and tires rolled by without notice. Tanya kept her eyes on the screen. She typed in her PIN. Then came the click of a car door, abrupt in the silence that followed. "Excuse me, ma'am." Her fingers paused mid-transaction. She turned slowly, calmly, like someone taught never to flinch. A police officer stood just 2 feet away, uniform crisp, his badge gleaming beneath the afternoon light. The nameplate read, Lasky. "Yes?" Tanya said, her voice even, her fingers still hovering over the keypad. He glanced at her hand, then her face, then the bank screen. "We've had some reports about suspicious activity at this ATM," he said. "Mind telling me what you're doing here?" She blinked once, twice. "Been using it. Do you have ID?" Tanya narrowed her eyes, not with hostility, but disbelief. "I just inserted my bank card. This is my bank." "I'll need to see your ID anyway." The machine beeped behind her, asking if she wanted to continue. Tanya stepped back, letting the screen dim into timeout. She pulled out her wallet with deliberate slowness. Nothing sudden, nothing to question. Her hands didn't shake, though her jaw clenched so tight she could hear the pressure in her ears. He took the ID, glanced at it briefly, and then said it. "You don't look like you're from around here." She'd lived 4 blocks away for 9 years. She drove past this bank every morning. She paid property taxes. She voted. But Tanya didn't answer that. Not yet. She waited for the question that always came next. "This card's in your name?" he asked, lifting the bank card like it might reveal something other than embossed plastic. "Yes," she said. He nodded slowly, like he didn't believe her, like he wanted a reason not to. Then he looked toward his cruiser. Tanya followed his gaze and noticed for the first time the second officer sitting in the passenger seat, scribbling in a notepad. "Am I being detained?" she asked. "No," he replied, but didn't step away. So she stepped forward, took her card back, canceled the transaction. "I'll come back later," Tanya said, turning to walk. But he moved with her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to stay a moment. We're just trying to verify everything, you understand?" "No, I don't." There it was, a slight rise in her tone, not yelling, but enough. And that's when the passenger door opened. Out came the second officer, younger, more uncertain, maybe still deciding how deep he wanted to swim in these waters, but he stood behind her anyway. That's when Tanya noticed. Her hands, they were trembling now, not from fear, but rage. "You can't just stop people like this," she said. "You wouldn't do this if I were blonde and in yoga pants." The first officer raised his brow. "Are you accusing us of something?" "I'm accusing you of wasting my time." She looked up, past the badge, past the silence growing thicker around them, and just across the street, on the patio of a small coffee shop, 2 people stared, one of them, phone in hand. The first officer noticed them too. He cleared his throat. "Ma'am, just a routine check. You can go." But she didn't move. Not yet. "Name?" she asked. "Officer Brett Lasky." She nodded, then turned to the younger cop. "And you?" He hesitated. "Officer Kevin Chu." Tanya didn't write it down. She wouldn't need to. Because Jasmine, her 10-year-old niece, stood just yards away now, frozen, clutching her after-school art folder, lips parted in confusion. She had seen everything, and that would be more than enough. Tanya kneeled down, smiled softly. "Hey, baby, sorry I'm late." Jasmine looked at the officers, then back at Tanya. "Did they think you were bad?" Tanya's chest tightened. "No, sweetie, they're just confused." She stood again, her posture straight as a rail. The officers said nothing. Tanya took Jasmine's hand, walked away. Behind her, she could hear the officers speaking low, too low for words to carry. But it didn't matter, because tomorrow the bank manager would be getting a call, and the day after that, someone from the press would start sniffing around, not because Tanya shouted, not because she ran, but because Tanya Sinclair didn't flinch, and she owned 30% of that damn bank. And now she was paying attention. Tanya didn't speak much on the way home. Jasmine sat in the back seat, unusually quiet, hugging her art folder like it was a life jacket. The pink plastic edges were frayed from wear, a strip of unicorn stickers peeling at the corners. Tanya watched her through the rearview mirror as they stopped at a red light. The glow of the sun cast soft golden stripes across the dashboard, and yet the air between them felt like winter. "Are they going to come to our house?" Jasmine asked, barely louder than a whisper. Tanya blinked hard, her fingers tightening around the steering wheel. "No, baby," she said. "They're not. But they were mad at you." Tanya paused. "They weren't mad," she said gently. "They were wrong. That's different." Jasmine looked down. She didn't understand the difference, not yet. But the way her small mouth pressed into a line, the way her eyes avoided Tanya's in the mirror. It was the first time she looked older than her age, a little more aware, a little more broken in. The light turned green. Tanya didn't move. The honk behind her snapped her forward, and she eased off the brake, letting the car roll on without saying another word. At home, Tanya unlocked the front door with one hand while balancing Jasmine's backpack with the other. The apartment was warm, the living room sun-drenched and soft with quiet. On the coffee table, a half-finished candle flickered low in its glass jar, cinnamon and something sweet. It should have felt like peace. It didn't. Tanya turned off the TV remote before Jasmine could see the news. She knew how these stories traveled. Snippets, headlines, blurry cell phone footage that always started too late, always showing the reaction, never the reason. Tanya didn't want Jasmine to see herself standing frozen in front of those officers again, not through someone else's phone screen. Jasmine dropped her bag by the couch and crawled onto the cushions, curling into the corner. Tanya watched her for a moment. Then, slowly, she sat beside her. "You want to talk about it?" Tanya asked. Jasmine shook her head. "You sure?" Another shake. Tanya rested her hand on Jasmine's knee, her touch gentle but steady. "You were really brave, you know." Jasmine finally looked up. "But I didn't do anything." "That's exactly what I mean." They sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the distant whir of traffic and life moved on like nothing had happened. But something had. Tanya stood and headed to the kitchen. She needed to keep moving. She needed to feel like she still had control over something, even if it was just boiling water for tea. Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Wait." Tanya wiped her hands on a dish towel and picked up. "Hey, you good?" Tanya hesitated. "I don't know what I am. Want me to come over?" Tanya considered it. "No, not yet." "What happened?" Tanya walked to the far end of the kitchen, voice dropping as she recounted the ATM, the questioning, the way they didn't back off until the phone came out. When she got to Jasmine, how she'd just stood there, watching. Her throat tightened. "She's never going to unsee that," Tanya said, voice low. "Neither will you." Maya paused on the line. You thinking of going public? You should. Tanya didn't answer. Tanya, you can't let this slide. I'm tired, she said. I'm tired of being the one who always has to teach the lesson. You're also the one who knows how to. Tanya bit her lip. Listen, Maya continued, I know you hate drawing attention to yourself. But you're not just anybody. You have leverage, power, influence. They picked the wrong damn woman. Tanya felt the weight of that settle on her chest. I'll think about it, she said. Just promise me you won't let them spin this. I promise. They hung up. Tanya stood still for a moment, staring at the darkened phone screen. Her own reflection stared back at her. Tired eyes, composed face. A woman who had trained her whole life to stay calm, even when fire bloomed beneath her skin. Her fingers hovered over the phone. Then she opened her email. She pulled up a message draft. To Raymond Hall. Subject: Urgent incident regarding field branch security protocols. She stared at the blinking cursor. Then she closed the draft without typing a word. She wasn't ready. Not yet. But she would be. That night, Jasmine fell asleep on the couch beside Tanya, curled into her aunt's side like she used to as a toddler. Tanya scrolled her phone in the dark, her screen dimmed low. Already the video had over 30,000 views. Someone had tagged her in the comments. Her name hadn't been said aloud at the scene, but someone in the bank must have recognized her. And now they all would. Tanya's finger hovered over the comments section, heart pounding. Why didn't she just comply? Why is this even news? This woman owns part of the bank? She stopped at that one, because there it was. The door opening. The misunderstanding shifting into revelation. People didn't yet realize the weight behind her last name. They didn't know how much of their own savings sat under her influence. They didn't know how often she sat across from bank executives in board meetings, how often she signed off on policy. But they would. Her phone buzzed again. This time a text from Malik Jensen, the local journalist she used to mentor back in her community outreach days. Saw what happened. Want to talk? I'll keep it clean. No clickbait. Just truth. Tanya stared at the message for a full minute before replying. Tomorrow. Noon. Cafe down on Baxter. No cameras. Just voice. Copy. I'll be there. She set her phone down. She looked at Jasmine again. And this time, she didn't feel like she needed to protect her niece from the truth. She needed to protect her from the silence. The kind that lets things rot and go unspoken. The kind that lets men like Officer Lasky walk away thinking they've done nothing wrong. Tanya didn't shout. She didn't post a monologue online. She didn't need to. She'd built power with spreadsheets and investments, with policies no one read until they had to, with quiet votes and louder minds. And now that power was a spotlight, and it had found the ATM. And Officer Lasky? He was about to find out who Tanya Sinclair really was. The Baxter Cafe was mostly empty at noon, the kind of place that smelled like cinnamon rolls even when none were baking. A few scattered customers lingered near windows with their laptops, sipping slowly from ceramic mugs. Tanya had chosen this spot on purpose. Quiet, clean, and out of the way. Familiar. She sat in the corner booth, back to the wall, facing the door. A plain cup of chamomile tea sat untouched in front of her. Her blazer was buttoned, her shoulders squared. She didn't need armor, but it felt like one all the same. Malik arrived right on time, notepad in hand, no camera in sight. He wore a navy windbreaker over a faded hoodie, and his black locks were pulled back in a bun, giving him the look of someone who'd always known how to listen. Tanya trusted that. He slid into the booth across from her. "You good?" he asked. She nodded once. "Let's start." He didn't even open the notepad yet. "Do you want to talk on record? I want you to listen first." Malik leaned forward. She told him everything. The way Officer Lasky had approached her, The way Jasmine stood there witnessing it all in silence. The way it didn't matter that she had ID or a name or a face they should have recognized. It never mattered. What got me, she said, wasn't just the way he looked at me. It was the way he assumed no one would ever look back. Malik scribbled a few lines into his notepad. "They don't know who you are," he said softly. "He will." She said it calmly, like she was reading it from a fact sheet. 30%. That's how much she owned of the bank. Acquired in silence, over a decade of deals, partnerships, and no spotlight investments. Because power didn't always come in noise. Sometimes it came in numbers. Malik looked up from his notes. "You want to go public? I want it on record, but I'm not doing a sit-down. No headlines with my face, no performative hashtags." "Understood. I want the truth," she said, "and I want policy change." Malik leaned back. "You think the bank will protect you?" Tanya didn't smile. "They should be asking if I'll protect them." Later that day, she stepped into the mirrored lobby of the main corporate branch downtown, heels clicking sharp against the polished marble floor. A receptionist greeted her with a soft smile and nervous eyes. "Miss Sinclair, they're waiting for you upstairs." Tanya didn't answer. She already knew. The elevator ride was silent. 32 floors. The glass walls overlooked the city like a judgment, and for the first time in weeks, Tanya welcomed the view. When she entered the boardroom, the chatter stopped. Raymond Hall, the bank's CEO, stood at the head of the table. His silver tie was perfectly knotted, but his voice wavered slightly when he said, "Tanya, we're glad you could make it." "Of course," she said, pulling out the chair at the far end of the table, directly across from him. 12 board members sat between them, faces unreadable. A few tried smiling, others avoided her gaze altogether. She knew who had her back and who was waiting for her to misstep. She didn't care. Raymond cleared his throat. "There's been considerable public attention around an incident involving a member of our leadership and one of our regional ATMs. Tanya didn't respond. He glanced at the others. "We're hoping to resolve this quietly, respectfully. Of course, we fully support you, Tanya, and..." "Respectfully," she cut in. "You don't." The air in the room stilled. "You support not having headlines. You support avoiding fallout. You support calming your investors. But you don't support me." Raymond opened his mouth, but she held up her hand. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm not here for performative allyship or crisis." She leaned forward slightly. "I'm here for change." The man beside her, Johnson, VP of Compliance, shifted in his seat. "What sort of change are we discussing?" "Rewriting how you respond to racial profiling under your own name." A few eyes widened. "Are we liable for what happens outside the bank?" one of the older board members asked, cautious. "When the person being profiled owns a third of your institution and her name is quietly filed under subsidiary real estate assets?" "Yes." "You are." Raymond interjected. "Tanya, let's be reasonable. This will blow over. The officers weren't with the bank." "But the ATM was." The silence that followed was long. Then Tanya pulled out a folder and slid it to the center of the table. "I've drafted the language. New protocol for all field locations, training modules, emergency contact procedures. Language for when incidents are captured on video, and policy for how managers should support impacted customers and shareholders." She tapped the folder. "I've also outlined media response templates, one of which includes my name, another does not." Raymond raised a brow. "You've already drafted policy?" "I don't wait for permission." No one moved. Then Tanya added, "There's also a clause that will require immediate retraining for all regional managers. And I want a public statement, not just on social media, a statement that gets sent to every single employee in this bank, from the interns to the executives." Raymond's fingers twitched against the table. "Do you know what the headlines are saying right now?" she asked. Do you know what your customers are seeing? They're not seeing some faceless victim. They're seeing me, and they're wondering who they bank with." A younger board member to her right spoke quietly. "She's right. There's already backlash. Social's a mess." Raymond looked down. He knew the optics. He knew what this was. And Tanya? She knew that this was only the beginning. She stood, gathering her folder again. "I don't need you to like this," she said. "I just need you to vote." No one said anything. She didn't wait. On her way out of the building, Tanya passed the same receptionist whose face had gone pale from watching the live security feed in the corner of her desk. She looked up at Tanya like she was seeing her for the first time. "Miss Sinclair?" she said softly. Tanya turned. "I saw what happened at the ATM," the receptionist said. "My sister? Something similar happened to her last year. But she didn't have the words." Tanya's voice softened. "Neither did I, until someone smaller than me had to watch." The woman nodded slowly. Tanya walked out into the sunlit street, her reflection passing through the glass doors like a ripple. Behind her, the city moved on, but something in the air had shifted. Not a wave. Not yet. But the wind had changed direction. And Tanya Sinclair was walking directly into it. The letter went live on a Thursday morning. Not a tweet, not a press release, not some PR-crafted apology buried under buzzwords and vague regrets. A full statement. Signed by Raymond Hall, approved unanimously by the board, distributed to every regional manager, every field officer, every intern and teller and assistant who'd ever stood behind a counter or loaded cash into an ATM. And right at the top, beneath the bank's gold and navy logo, was the sentence, "We failed Tanya Sinclair." Tanya read the email alone in her kitchen, the early light slanting across the tile floor, barefoot, a coffee mug in hand. Jasmine was still asleep down the hall. The world was quiet, in the way it is only before the noise starts up again. She scrolled past the first paragraph, past the mention of the incident, the acknowledgement of trauma, the admission of internal flaws, and then there it was. The part she'd fought for. "We are proud to confirm that Miss Sinclair remains a vital part of this institution, not only as a key stakeholder, but as an architect of our growth. Her contributions to the bank's financial strategy and her long-standing commitment to economic equity have shaped who we are." Tanya closed her eyes, just for a second. Not out of relief, not even joy, just stillness. She exhaled. The message went viral by noon. Screenshots of the letter swept through LinkedIn, Instagram, Reddit. News stations picked it up. Corporate accountability done right. How one black woman flipped the power dynamic, from ATM profiling to boardroom policy. Malik's article had dropped the same day, a full feature in the Sunday section. No flashy photos, just facts. A story that began at an ATM and ended in a boardroom, but in between dug deep into the systems that let assumptions grow unchecked. He had titled it simply, "Her name is Tanya Sinclair." That Sunday, Tanya walked into Faith and Flower Cafe with Jasmine. It was a community event, one she usually skipped because it was all awkward hugs and punch bowls and the occasional person who wanted to sell insurance. But this time was different. People clapped when she entered. Not everyone. Not loudly. But enough. The pastor nodded at her like he was seeing her differently now. Two teenagers by the cookie table whispered something, then looked away quickly, embarrassed to be caught. Tanya didn't react. She just squeezed Jasmine's hand and kept walking. Halfway through the event, an older woman named Mrs. Duncan pulled her aside. "I saw your name on the news," she said. "Didn't realize you were that Tanya." Tanya tilted her head. "I'm the same one." Mrs. Duncan smiled. "No, baby, you were always this. The world's just catching up." Later, outside the cafe, Tanya stood on the sidewalk watching Jasmine race up and down the block with a group of kids, their laughter sharp and joyful in the open air. No fear, no shadows, just light. Beside her, Maya sipped a lemonade. "You know what's wild?" she said. "You didn't even raise your voice." "I didn't have to," Tanya said. "No, but maybe now. They'll start listening anyway." They watched Jasmine for a while, the sunlight dancing across the sidewalk in patches. A little girl with her whole world ahead of her, no idea how close she'd come to carrying something heavy before she even understood what it meant. "You think it'll stick?" Maya asked. Tanya didn't answer right away. "It'll have to," she said eventually, "because I'm not letting it slide again." Monday morning brought the first sign that it would. An internal email from HR arrived. Attached was a memo titled Equity Standards Rollout Field Division. It was Tanya's policy, word for word. Adopted, printed, and sent to every employee in the company. Her name was in the footer, below the bank's logo. The same logo she'd seen at that ATM screen, blinking like it belonged to someone else. Not anymore. A week later, Tanya met Raymond for coffee, his idea. He was 10 minutes early, nervous in a way she hadn't seen before. But there was no condescension in his tone, no spin. He apologized, sincerely, looked her in the eye when he said it. "I should have recognized you," he admitted, "not because of your shares, but because of your work." Tanya let the silence stretch before answering. "Now you do," she said. They didn't become friends, but they didn't need to. He respected her now, and more importantly, he knew she didn't need his validation to be heard. Weeks passed. The story slowly faded from headlines, replaced by new outrage, new scandals. The way these things always go. But inside the bank, Tanya's influence didn't fade. It expanded. She began working directly with the Diversity and Equity Committee. She led workshops, quietly mentored 2 young black analysts in the risk management division, sat in on meetings no one used to invite her to. Now they wouldn't start without her. Jasmine started drawing again. Her sketchbook overflowed with bold colors, sharp lines. One day Tanya found a picture tucked inside, a girl standing in front of a giant ATM, arms crossed, a cape fluttering behind her. She was smiling. Tanya pinned it to the fridge. On a crisp Friday morning, Tanya stood outside the same ATM where it all began. She wasn't there to withdraw anything. She was there to meet with the new regional field trainer. They were launching a new initiative, site-level education on unconscious bias, procedural equity, and community response strategies. Her program, her design. The trainer shook her head. "Thank you for being here," he said. Tanya looked past him at the machine, the sidewalk, the small patch of grass where Jasmine had stood watching. "I was always here," she said. He looked confused, but she didn't explain. She didn't need to. Because now they knew her name, and Tanya Sinclair had made sure they would never forget it.